Welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show that looks at the highs and the lows around world football this weekend. We start, as ever, with the talking point. This week it was suggested by Davey Sparkles, and it's Shambles Chelsea.
Yeah, old Davey wants to talk about their torrid end to the season, which came in the form of losing 3-0 to Rafa Benitez's Newcastle at St James's Park. Now, that result meant the Blues finished outside of the top four for the first time since 15-16, when they finished 10th. And there was a glimmer of hope coming into this fixture in terms of securing Champions League football. They had to win and Liverpool had to lose. But it didn't go according to plan, and the result, from a Newcastle point of view, never really looked in doubt. They're extremely poor on the day, didn't even have a shot until the 52nd minute, and I believe that was Giroud's very speculative little flick. They're also outshot 16-6, as you'd expect, not having a shot until nearly an hour's gone, by a Toon team that are 14th in the league for goals scored with 39. Morata, their big summer signing, didn't come on until the 75th minute. We're going to talk about him in a little bit because his future looks in doubt at this point, according to certain sources at least. But for a team that won the league last season pretty comfortably, their meltdown against small teams in 2018 has been unfathomable.
Yes.
They've lost to Newcastle, Bournemouth, West Ham, Palace, Burnley and Watford this season, and it's the first time in 4 seasons that Antonio Conte has failed to win a league title, which is pretty incredible.
Yes.
So he'll be reflecting on that, you'd imagine. Now, surely the Italian is departing at the end of the season. We don't really need to talk about that. The relationship between him and Abramovich looks untenable, especially when after the game he said, "I'm the last person to ask about why we're not in the top 4. Ask the club." You'd imagine that's because he feels like he's not been given their backing in a similar fashion to his rivals like Pep and Jose. But we want to know, as ever, what the people of London, what the people of Great Britain think about this. So we sent Liv out on the streets. Over to you, Livster.
Yep, it looks like Conte will be leaving Chelsea in the summer. So we're here in central London to ask you guys who you think should replace him at Stamford Bridge.
Surrey, I think it's a good shout. Yeah, why not?
Laurent Blanc, the French, and I think is good for this team.
Arsene Wenger.
No.
Massimo Allegri would be a good change.
Yeah.
Obviously a fellow Italian. I think he'd do a good job because he's got the sort of authoritarianism of Conte, but he seems to be a little bit more positive about the whole thing.
Would Allegri go there? Of how Chelsea spent money, they're not the same as the City or United spending power now. But then at the same time, Juventus don't really tend to spend either. So why not?
In the way they play, I think Ancelotti will be very good.
I actually have absolutely no idea.
Do you think Chelsea have treated Conte unfairly?
Yeah, I don't think it's just Conte. I think they treat a lot of their managers unfairly, to be honest. It seems to be a bit of an ongoing trend where it's just sort of hire and fire.
Not really. I don't think football manager ever treated fairly, are they? So
Chelsea have had 12 managers in 15 years. Do you think the merry-go-round of a manager all the time is working?
no, I think they should have a long-term manager. I think it takes a long time to get somebody to bed in.
Yeah.
Look at Man United and Jose Mourinho, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, well, they win leagues, don't they, every other year, so it's clearly working.
I think it's brought the club success in the past, so maybe it can do the same again.
And do you think they've got a chance at winning the FA Cup?
Yeah, they've always got a chance. It'll be difficult because Man United like the big occasions, and obviously Chelsea are on a bit of a downward slope.
But I think he's got a chance.
Yeah.
I think he'll want to win with him, and I think if they win, he should stay.
Yeah, I hope they win because I don't like United, so I really hope they win.
United win.
Yeah.
I think so.
Some interesting answers there from the people on the streets. Perhaps who would you go for?
It's a difficult one, and it's becoming harder to answer because I had someone like Max Allegri not nailed on for this job, but a firm favourite. But last night, after securing the title against Roma, he said that unless Juventus sacked him, he wasn't leaving the old lady. Maybe has some unresolved business there. Maybe wants another pop at the Champions League. Then there's more realistic candidates like Luis Enrique, ex-Barca, obviously currently without a job. You have older statesmen like Carlo Ancelotti. We know that Abramovich doesn't mind revisiting people he's already hired, Mourinho, Hiddink. potentially Sarri, although his sort of football is the antithesis of what Chelsea are producing at the moment. So I'm not sure. I don't think there's an obvious answer in there. What about you?
I also don't think there's an obvious answer. I think they'll be gutted to have missed out on Thomas Tuchel. I think Thomas Tuchel would have been quite a nice fit, but I think they might end up going for Diego Simeone. I think they'll go pretty hard for him. I think he fits. He's more aligned with the type of football they're playing at the moment than some of the other managers we've mentioned, in terms of being much more defensively stable and looking to not necessarily play with loads of possession but counter-attack a little bit more. So I think maybe Diego Simeone would be a good fit. But whether or not he's actually got some of the tools that Antonio Conte has had this season at his disposal remains to be seen. Obviously, it's been well publicised that Alvaro Morata has been linked with a move away from the club over the last few days, particularly to Juventus. This one came from Corriere dello Sport, who said that they were already in talks and that Chelsea would be willing to sell if they can recoup the fee they paid to Real Madrid. Now, Morata has played for Juventus in the past. He probably would be keen to go back there, but I'm sure whichever manager does come in will want to have Morata in the team. And Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard has also been linked with a move away from the club this morning. This one comes from the Spanish press, who say that if Real can't get Neymar, they will go for Hazard.
Interesting.
So
yeah, because hiring a new manager, it's just as important to reflect on the squad you've currently got, as well as their credentials, right? We saw it with Palace, albeit a much less glamorous example, when they employed the board. If you're going to employ a manager with a totally different ethos, you need to back them to the hilt in the transfer market to then overhaul the squad. So maybe Abramovich, if he's curbing his spending, will be looking for someone with a similar style, who won't need to add 4 or 5 players, but maybe just 1 or 2. And in that regards, maybe a Simeone,
if they can tempt him out of athletics,
is not the worst option, although I don't think much of Chelsea's defence at current. But what do you guys think? Who would you like to see at Chelsea? Will Morata and Eden Hazard leave? I'd imagine no.
One of them, I think, will go this summer.
Ooh, who do you think? Hazard, will he stay there without Champions League football?
I think Morata will leave.
Interesting, you heard it here first. But anyway, moving on to winners and losers. Surprise, surprise, Manchester City are our first winners, and this comes from @Jamie Spraggin, but I think it is deserved. The first team to reach that mythical 100-point barrier. How did they finish the season, Joseph?
They didn't finish it brilliantly, but they finished it as record breakers. You're going to go through a few of those records in just a minute, aren't you? But they won 1-0 against Southampton. Not a particularly vintage Pep Guardiola display. I mean, they only mustered 2 shots on target throughout the 90 minutes against a quite a poor Southampton team. But they won't care, will they? Because Gabriel Jesus got the goal in the 94th minute to take them to 100 points. It's brilliant work by Kevin De Bruyne, who actually, that assist took him to 16 for the league season, making him the playmaker of the season, and in the process, just pipping Leroy Sane, who was on 15. He actually got a trophy for it, which I didn't think they did.
I don't know why
trophy.
It's an award. It's sponsored by like Cadbury's, isn't it? I'm not sure what's
Don't know what happened there, but he got 16 assists, so that is still pretty incredible. More good news on the day as well. Ederson has signed a contract until 2025, a 7-year deal. Wow. So I'm sure Pep Guardiola will be delighted with that. But overall, we're kind of running out of superlatives to describe this City team. They've just been unstoppable. 153 minutes. That is the amount of time they have spent behind in the Premier League this season. Just 153 minutes. That is, of course, a record. I mean, their consistency across the whole campaign has been remarkable. They've taken 50 points at home, 50 points away. You can't ask for more.
Yeah, they've just rolled over people wherever they've gone. It's not mattered, has it? And Guardiola had this to say after the game: 100 points. I still cannot believe it. 100 points in the Premier League. It is a massive achievement. And still, that is a little bit understated, because this isn't something he's done in his career, even with those great Barcelona sides of 09, 10 and onwards. I think the most he got was 99 with them and 96. He also won 28 of 34 games in the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich. So to have managed to have superseded previous achievements on this stage is absolutely incredible. And unsurprisingly, they're the first team to achieve this points tally in the English top flight, even if you go back, way back when.
Yes.
When you used to get 2 points for a win and change that to 3. Barely makes sense, but you know what I'm trying to say. And it's not the only record they broke this season. It's been pretty well documented, but it's down here in the script, so I'm going to go through them again. They're the first team to win 32 games in a 38-game season in the Premier League. They won 16 away games in those 38 games. The first team to manage an 18 consecutive win run in the Premier League, and the first team to score 106 goals. They also have the biggest points gap between first and second ever this season, which was 19. Manchester United finishing on 900 minus 1981. And they have the highest ever positive goal difference in Premier League history with plus 79, which is like explicit, isn't it? But is this Pep Guardiola's greatest team ever? Oh, spicy question. Let us know in the poll.
Our first losers was suggested by Manshaft1256 on Twitter. He says Bayern Munich, but we've got to start by talking about Stuttgart because they thumped them on the weekend.
Yeah, why not? Positive vibes. Stuttgart battered Bayern Munich 4-1, giving Jupp Heynckes one hell of a send-off at the Allianz by spanking the Bavarians. Although Bayern didn't take the chances on the day, had 18 shots, registered 8 on target, but only converted 1. Stuttgart, unbelievably, had 7 shots, all 7 landing on target. Wow. Which is exactly wow. Tolisso bagged Bayern's goal, bringing his tally to 6 goals and 4 assists from central midfield in 1,500 league minutes. So what a debut, the French debut campaign the Frenchman has had. But a double from Ginczek, plus strikes from Adonis, what a name, and a Kolo gave Typhon Korkut a huge win, which secured 7th place. Now, Stuttgart's top goal scorer is the Battleborn, Mario Gomez, with just 8, and they have 36. They've scored 36 league goals. Only 3 sides in the Bundesliga have fewer, but they have the second best defence in the Bundesliga, conceding just 36 in 34.
Sounds like Burnley. It sounds like Burnley here.
Is Korkut the Dyche
in 7th as well
of the Bundesliga. When he took over in January, Stuttgart had won 6 and lost 12 out of 20 games, and were languishing down in 14th. Obviously, only 18 teams in the Bundesliga, so near that relegation zone. Since then, they've won 9 and lost 1 out of 14. So pretty impressive turnaround from him, Joseph.
Yeah, an incredible turnaround. I mean, in that time, I think they've taken 2.2 points per game. If they'd have done that throughout the course of the whole season, they'd have finished comfortably second on around 75 points. Meanwhile, for Bayern Munich, kind of an unsatisfying season, I guess you'd say, if you were Bavarian. I mean, you've had the exit of Carlo Ancelotti, another failure in the Champions League, and they've won the Bundesliga, but let's face it, the rest of the competition has been incredibly poor. I think second place Schalke have just 63 points, which is the lowest of any second place team in the Bundesliga since all the way back in 2004, which was again Schalke. Going into this game, Bayern Munich though had only conceded 0.7 goals per game, so this, something right, was an absolutely huge collapse. So massive, massive props to Korkut for turning it around. He's obviously been linked to the Borussia Dortmund job quite heavily, which could be exciting. We've got Kovac coming in as the new Bayern Munich manager. We're just hoping and praying the Bundesliga livens up because, quite frankly, it's one of the dullest leagues in Europe right now. Our final winner of the day was suggested by the true Gunnosaurus, and he says you've got to talk about Arsene Wenger.
Yeah, why not? Anything for the true Gunnosaurus. Emotional scenes during the game, Wenger bowing, of course. This was his final bow, and he's gone out in style, hasn't he, the Frenchman, securing Arsenal's first away points of 2018. And it was record signing Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang coming up with the goods yet again, the quickest Arsenal player to reach 10 goals, taking only 13 games to reach the milestone. He's also provided 4 assists during this period, and more positively, looking forward. The next manager will be delighted with the way that him and Lacazette have been playing together, because it was mooted that when he arrived, it would sideline the Frenchman, and they're playing well together, aren't they? Or so I'm told by Arsenal fans anyway. As a result, he's reached double figures in 2 leagues this season as the Gabonese striker. Only 5 players have scored more in the Bundesliga, and he left in January.
Insane.
So, pretty good for him, not so much for the Bundesliga. And both sets of fans were in a celebratory mood, weren't they? Huddersfield fans for securing their Premier League status for another season, and Arsenal fans giving Arsene Wenger the send-off he so richly deserves. In fact, both sets of fans joined in as the Frenchman's exit started to dominate proceedings. After 22 minutes, the whole ground gave him a rapturous applause, honouring and celebrating his 22 years of service. That was nice to see. Thoroughly deserved, and winning at the John Smith Stadium. It means that Arsene Wenger has now won a Premier League game at 48 different grounds, more than any other manager in history. He was level with Fergie before, so a nice personal accolade to go out on. But Joe, before we dive into your section, let's take a look at his emotional last interview.
Arsene, can you sum up your emotions after that?
It's of course very emotional, because after 1,235 games for the same club, of course it's special. But to be a happy day, we had to win it, you know, because above all what makes me going is to win football games. And in the end, the boys wanted to deliver a win, and we got it. Just want to wish this group of players well, and the staff who is coming in, and hopefully, as I said many times, I will remain an Arsenal fan above all, you know, and that's most important for me. I see a bright future for my successor, because the club is the team has a good attitude and there's quality. We need 2 or 3 additions, you know, and after that, I believe that the club will compete from the Premiership.
But who's going to take over at Arsenal now? A strong contender. The front runner has emerged as Miguel Arteta. He's overtaken Allegri in the last 24 hours, because Allegri obviously ruled himself out, and he said that he wouldn't leave unless he's sacked, because he wants to go on and win a Champions League at Juventus. He's taken them to 2 finals in his 4 years there, hasn't he? And Morata has even come out and said, Allegri, his departure has not crossed our minds. So let's move Allegri to one side, and if you do that, Miguel Arteta is the standout. Pep Guardiola has added fuel to the fire, saying he will let him go. He wants the best for his friends. So if that happens, I don't know whether it's a positive or a negative, to be completely honest. If for Arsenal fans, I bet they don't either. I mean, if you're an Arsenal fan watching this at home, do you want Arteta? Really? Gazidis has come out and talked about wanting to unearth the next great manager, and now he wants a head coach rather than a manager, because, you know, he wants somebody to support Sven Mislintat behind the scenes. So it's going to be an interesting next 12 months if you're an Arsenal fan. But let us know in the comments below if you actually want Arteta to take over from Wenger, because for me, it seems like a massive risk.
Our final losers come from Tyler McGrogan, and he's put Swansea in there. So we get to finish off the show in style, talking about Swansea versus Stoke. Thank you, Tyler. Joseph?
Wow, they lost 2-1, didn't they? And as such, got relegated to the Championship after 7 glorious seasons in the Premier League that gave us such highs as the Welsh tiki-taka and Michu. Thanks for little to nothing, Swansea. The game pretty much summed up the Swansea season, though. 58% possession, 26 shots to Stoke's 8. They had 11 on target, but that front line just isn't good enough, is it? Jordan Ayew on 11, Tammy Abraham on 8, are the only Swansea players to have scored more than 3 goals this season. That's so embarrassing. The game also saw a club legend leave and retire. Yes, Leon Britton retired after 537 games for the club, joining them all the way back in 2003.
Yeah, and the Swans were doomed from the offset, weren't they? Short of a 9-goal swing, Southampton was safe and they were going down, and that's how it unfolded. And after a promising start under Carlos Carvalhal, the ex-Sheffield Wednesday manager, wherein they actually secured 14 points in his first 7 games, which was 1 more than they secured in the 20 prior to that when Paul Clement was at the helm. They only won 1 in 11 since, getting 6 points in the process. Drawn 3, lost 7, won 1. And Clement's signings at the start of the season didn't amount to much either, did they? Like Renato Sanchez, who only played 859 minutes for the club. Big fall from grace for the former Golden Boy. He's going to have a long, hard look at where he plays his football next season. Bert Carvajal was also backed to a decent extent in January, but are you back to the club? Which seemed, seems even worse in retrospect. It seemed f***ing absurd at the time for £18 million. I don't think he has scored since coming back to the club. And the Swans actually have the worst goal-scoring record in the league this season, only netting 28. And they lost the most games as well, 21 defeats. So, might play decent football every now and then, but deserved relegation fodder.
So that's the end of winners and losers, Hamster. What's happening on ERU?
We're talking about Barcelona and their failed bid to go a season unbeaten. That's the headline story. But if you haven't watched Star Wars The Champions, me versus Akin Benoit from the weekend just gone, go and do that over on Eurofootball Daily. What else do we have? Sunday Vibes went out yesterday, albeit the audio's a little bit dodgy. Sorry about that. We'll sort that out for this week. And we have on Football Daily a live stream on Sunday.
If you can persevere through the whole of that.
3 hours long. If you haven't watched it, just skip through it. Some good bits in there. See you in a bit.